here! Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is the Angry Chicken.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Angry Chicken, the podcast all about Hearthstone. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, calling in live from North Carolina. Joining me, as always, is Willie Dills Gregory and Jocelyn Moffitt. Guys, I made it!
Hooray! No hurricanes hit you.
I mean, they did.
Well,
it's not affecting this particular podcast. You know what's hilarious, guys? If we can have personal travel talk real fast at the top of the show before we get into a ass ton of Hearthstone news that has happened while I've been away, is that I left my home of Florida to come all the way to North Carolina, and I was more affected by the hurricane that just went through than I would have been had I just stayed home in Florida. Lost power for like a good 3 hours here.
wow.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm sure Trump will show up and toss you some paper towels any minute now.
God, I hope it's Hearthstone Trump. I really hope it's Hearthstone Trump you're talking about, Bill.
Yeah. Trump SC. Yep.
He's a great guy. He is absolutely the kind of guy, the stand-up gentleman that would show up and give you paper towels when you really need it.
Yep. Except he's playing a lot of Magic right now too. So
He is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
it's hard to
magic
find
going
Hearthstone
on.
streams. Thank God there was the HCT this weekend. It's like, oh, I get to watch Hearthstone again.
Yep.
Listen, if I could find a way to stream Hearthstone from the break room at the trade show I'm currently at, I would be glad to, because it's been all Hearthstone for me, because you can't play Magic on the go right
You
now.
cannot. Yeah.
No, it's reminding me. It's reminding me that when I'm sitting in my ivory tower of being able to be in front of a PC, like actual physical computer all day, every day, that the fact that you can play this full card game in all its glory on these little things that we keep in our pocket is actually
Pretty sweet, right? Yeah.
And I don't always give it the respect that it deserves.
Eternal has a client as well, and it's pretty seamless too. But I feel like Hearthstone's transition to it is definitely the smoothest. When you take like all other things out of the picture and you just say like the game itself, how is this playing a game of Hearthstone compared to like playing a game of Eternal or whatever? It's just like the systems, everything in place. It just works, right? It's just nice. Now, if they could not boot me out every now and then after a game is over, that would be sweet. But look. I'm asking too much already.
They just want you to like get up and stretch and take a break.
Sure,
They're thinking about
forced
your health,
breaks.
Dills.
Yeah, it's forced breaks. It's for my own good.
That's what's going on. That's exactly what's going on. But there's a lot going on in Hearthstone, and I don't have control of the bumpers, so I hope you all enjoyed today's episode when I go, Dills, hit the news bumper.
Good news, everyone!
I did it.
Flawless. Flawless.
This is actually pretty fun. I kind of want to.
I actually also have to tell you when they're over too, which is funny.
I kind of heard it in the background.
Okay, cool. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, you can hear it
And
a
you,
little.
at this point, 285 episodes in, you know how long they all are, right? You've got them memorized. Yeah.
Crazy game stories, because that segment comes and goes more than anything else. But
The hardest one is when it's going to be emails time, and you have to be like, "Hello." It's for that quiet intro part of it.
whatever the case is, I was laying in bed the other night, perusing my phone, thinking to myself, I could probably just skip another episode of The Angry Chicken. Dills and Joss, they've got it on lockdown. There's nothing crazy happening in the world. They'll be all right. It's fine. I don't need to come.
There's nothing really interesting to talk about in Hearthstone right now.
And then I'm on Twitter and I see nerfs have been announced. Actually, the first thing I saw was like a meme tweet by Crip. That's how I found out that the nerfs happened. Was Crip?
Wait, what did he say? Was he mad about Druid too?
No, he said 3 cards died today, and he had photoshopped them like these 3 cards going into a grave, like an American flag. Drake.
So he memed, yeah.
That's how I learned about it. I'm laying in bed, just exhausted, going, "No, I have to be on the next episode. I want to talk about this."
I found out the same way, actually, not through Crypt, but through some. It might have even been a Dwakta, maybe, talking about how Giggling had changed by 2 mana, and I was like, that can't be real, right?
Well, yeah.
Checks the calendar. Not April.
More than we assumed, but after reading through stuff and thinking about it, all of this made sense to me. This is you know what though? I'm just happy something happened, right?
Yeah, Dills, what was it like getting the phone call when they said, "So how would you like us to change Mana Wyrm?"
Yeah, look, it only took 5 years of me talking about it on a podcast to get something done about this damn card. Yeah, Team 5 is nothing if not punctual and on top of it when it comes to making changes.
Yeah. So, if anyone's wondering if you somehow have not seen the nerfs, let's start with Mana Wyrm. Mana Wyrm is now going to cost 1 more mana. It is still a 1 attack, 3 health Mana Wyrm that gains 1 attack whenever you cast a spell, but it costs 2 mana to plant this sucker on the board.
Damn, son. Yeah, I mean, this basically just removes Mana Wyrm from all mage decks.
Which is really unfortunate, I think.
No, it's not. They could have literally deleted the card and I would have been like, fair nerf. That's a fair nerf.
I guess that depends. Yeah, if you don't ever want to see it again, then yeah, this is a great nerf. This is the correct choice.
This card is stupid. It doesn't fit into the modern world of Hearthstone. It just doesn't. And in the era of Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem, sure. Mage deserves to have the strongest 1-drop in the world, but not anymore.
Okay, so you're landing on where I think the interesting conversation is, which is are you happy with this nerf? Do you wish they went a different direction? And I think I may be in the camp of wishing they had just thrown it in the Hall of Fame early. Just send this sucker.
Well, but that doesn't.
Yeah, but the problem is, in Wild. Yeah, in Wild, that Tempo Mage is disgusting because they not only have Mana Wyrm, they also have the little 2/1 that makes your secrets free on turn 1. They also have the 3 mana, deal 3 damage, put a fireball for 3 in your deck. They have like so many more tools. That deck is disgusting in Wild, and I think it will still be a good deck in Wild. You're just gonna have to play Secret Keeper instead of Mana Wyrm, and that's fine. I think that's totally acceptable.
I kind of wish that they'd gone the route of making it easier to kill. Like,
if they made it a 1/2, I would have been okay with that too.
1/2, yeah, that's kind of the direction I was hoping that they went, because I think it is still important to have early plays. Like, what does Mage really do on 1? Like Secret Keeper, yeah, that's an option. No,
now they're gonna Secret Keeper, or they're gonna whatchamacallit, play the 1 mana 1/2, make another 1/2. Flame Elemental.
Flame Elemental, yeah.
They're just gonna they're gonna dire mole. You know what I mean? They're gonna do something fair. That's what they're gonna do. They're still gonna play a 1-drop. They're just gonna do something that's not completely broken and decides the game. You know,
all those options are neutrals though. Like, it doesn't, again, like I mean, I feel a little silly because of how much we make fun of this, but it's like the whole soul of the cards, like the soul of the class. I would like it if classes had something to do on turn 1 that was like class specific. I don't want every class to be dire moling.
What classes do have that?
Well, and I'm just like,
even Odd Rogue doesn't play a rogue card on 1. They play neutral cards on 1, right? Like,
no, I know. I'm just saying, like, I would like them to have a little bit more like flavor and options and stuff. So this going to 2 just makes me sad.
Nah.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Fine. You're allowed to say I'm wrong, but
I think Mage was just doing something that no other class was doing, and that I think should not be how Hearthstone works anymore. I think they've gone away from the uber powerful 1-drop, and for a long time, I think that's a smart decision by them to move away from turn 1 game over. Right? I don't think anybody wants turn 1 game over to ever exist in Hearthstone ever again.
I'm not arguing that 1 mana, 1/3 Mana Wyrm was a good card or shouldn't have been changed. I just think that there are other ways to change it that would have kept it playable.
I think that's fair.
Sure.
And while Flame Elemental is a perfectly fine answer, that calls in the question: what the hell happens next year when Flame Elemental goes to Wild?
New 1-drops. Yeah. I think honestly though, so I was playing this red. This is the like version of what Tempo Burn Mage is in Magic the Gathering Arena, right? And right now it is a mono red aggro deck, and its 1-drops are a 1/2 that requires 2 spells to be in your graveyard for it to gain +1 attack and haste, which means it'll never be that on turn 1 because it's impossible on turn 1 to play it and have 2 spells in your graveyard. Or your other 1-drop is a 1/1 with haste. So, and that doesn't grow or do anything, right? So on turn 1, like, sometimes I hit them for 1.
Like charge?
Yes.
Yeah, haste is charge, yeah. So essentially, I can play a boar on 1, or I can play a 1/2 that eventually will be a 2/2. Those are my options on turn 1. And it feels fine. And I'm an aggro deck, and I'm still killing people on like turn 3 or 4, right?
And that's a game that doesn't have a guaranteed perfect mana curve.
Yeah. Well, my deck doesn't care about mana curve either. I chuck back any hand with 3 mana. Like, I'm just like, no, I need 2.
That's part of what makes strong one drops in Hearthstone so scary, because you know you're going to have 2 mana next turn. You know you're going to have 3 mana the turn after that, so on and so forth.
Exactly. Like, Hearthstone doesn't have that issue, right? So when you know you can perfectly play on curve, 1 drops should not exist in this way wherein they have as much... Like, I feel like, so Flame Imp is like a good example of how to build a powerful 1-drop. High attack, weak body with a downside, right? But the problem with Mana Wyrm is high health, huge upside, 0 downside, right? So, yeah, it's just, I agree with you, Jocelyn, that they could have made it a 1/2, and that would have been maybe a better change, but their philosophy around changes is not to change the card itself, but to change the mana cost more often, so that when a person logs in,
they're
like, they don't have to read the card again, right?
Yeah, because whatever. I'm not gonna go.
Yeah, into like that philosophy is their philosophy.
Like, whether that's good or not, that is their philosophy. You're right. So we should expect mana changes over everything else, which is exactly what we got with all 3 of these nerfs. Is just mana changes. But
it is.
One more thing that I wanted to bring up before we move on from the kind of 1-drop conversation is, now that they've changed Mana Wyrm, do you think that they should change Voidwalker and or Tunnel Trog? Like, knowing that even though Tunnel Trog is over in Wild, there's still an argument that Shaman still has Tunnel Trog, which is...
Well, Shaman doesn't play odd cost cards anymore, so it's fine. I mean, that's glossing over it a little bit, but like, in Wild, it's even Shaman only.
I would say the card we're about to talk about, Aviana, being changed, I look at this and see that this is Team 5 saying, we will make balance changes on behalf of Wild.
Yes.
And Dills, your immediate crackback on me saying, why don't you just send Mana Wyrm to the Hall of Fame, saying, well, no.
Yeah, it is Wild, yeah.
Wild gets into this conversation for me. So I would say Tunnel Trog, we can have that conversation when it becomes an oppressive issue in the format.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that the Mana Wyrm being in standard essentially forever means that it was like a dire situation, right? Whereas Tunnel Trog has essentially been kind of glossed over by the Wild community anyway. There was a time in Wild where they were still playing essentially mid-range Shaman, right? With a bunch of overload, but because even became a thing, they were just like, oh yeah, that costs 1. So in fact, if they made it cost 2, you might see it be put back into Shaman decks. I will also say Tunnel Trog has the advantage of the thing that makes it grow is a drawback, right? So it's slightly more balanced on its own, right? Because you have to overload, whereas Mana Wyrm, it's like, I am a mage, I'm casting spells, and my spells are doing their spellish things. There's no drawback to this.
You don't have to actually like build around it in any way.
Yeah. So, I will say this though, as an argument in defense before we move on, because we did bring it up. In defense of Team 5, I have gone through periods of times where Eternal has made a whole bunch of nerfs, and they've not just nerfed mana cost, they've nerfed a whole bunch of random stuff, and it is really difficult to keep track of when you're not super familiar with all the cards to begin with, right? So there is definitely an advantage to just changing the mana cost and not touching the text, because I've logged into Eternal and been like, wait, what the hell changed here? And they, it'll be like 20 cards have changed, and sometimes they're highlighting the mana cost, and sometimes they're highlighting the text, and I'm like, I don't know what the old text was, so I don't even know what the hell changed here. So it is simpler on our small pea brains. We couldn't handle 18 deck slots for so long. How can we handle 1 mana 1/2s?
And I can see that argument if Hearthstone changed as often as some other games, because I feel that way sometimes when I come back to Heroes of the Storm, not only with like new hero releases, but like with patch notes, it's like, okay, this character that I played that used to be really good now all of a sudden is really bad, and I'm not really sure why, and everybody's been buffed and nerfed, and everything's all over the place.
Well, yeah, they completely reworked them too, and sometimes they just move an integer. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I understand that sometimes when there's a lot of buffs or nerfs or whatever, that it can be overwhelming, but I think Hearthstone, at least lately, has been doing these kind of like mid-expansion changes. So if we're going to get like one change every 3 to 4 months and it's only a handful of cards, this is only 3 cards. Last time it was what, 5 cards maybe?
Yeah.
So like these aren't huge changes. So
yeah, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying there is an argument to be made for the other side. Like I think there's the both sides are valid here.
If they changed like 10 to 15 cards a month, I could see the argument of keep it as simple as possible because we're making lots of changes. But I think where they're not making a lot of changes, they should have the room and they should trust the player base to maybe tweak a couple things here and there that make the card, or that keep the card interesting, as opposed to just saying, okay, it's now costs twice as much mana, it's a 2-drop, and nobody's really going to play it that often.
Oh, by the way, I should have done this. There you go. Now the people in the chat can see the card.
Hey, visual aids.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, just in time to talk about what the hell happened to Aviana, and it's the same thing. Cost has been increased by 1. I like to think all of these changes is just Thanksgiving coming early, or at least U.S. Thanksgiving coming early, and everyone's just a little bloated after their meal. Spend a little more mana to get them out. So Aviana now costs 10 mana, so you can't do the Kun combo anymore.
Well, you can innervate Kun and still do it, but that's good. I mean, like, I think that the Aviana-Kun combo is cool, and I don't really want it to just be gone forever. But I do like that you have to work a little bit harder for it. Well, and also Juicy Psych Melon doesn't just draw you both of these cards, right? Which I think was another huge issue, is that you'd play Juicy Psych Melon, and you'd get Aviana and Kun, and you'd be like, cool, now I got it. Now I got the combo.
Yeah.
So now you got to draw one, then draw the other, and it's not super simple to just pull them directly out of your deck. So yeah, this is another positive move. Wild is probably going to be dominated by even Shaman still, which it was. That's not really going to change, but there won't be that frustrating thing of just watching a Druid ramp then just kill you and just knowing that you couldn't do anything about it. You know what I mean?
There won't be Hearthstone? You just described Hearthstone.
Yeah, sure. I mean, at least in Standard they ramp and then they have to, like, you know, make their whole weapon disappear or play like a 7-drop 4/4, like, you know what I mean? Like in Wild, you literally watch them ramp, and then on like 9 mana they Psych Melon, and then on 10 mana you're like dead, and you're like, I'm on 5 mana. What the hell is going on here?
Yeah, it's a little strong, So that's the change there. So I've got kind of 2 topical questions, but I kind of made the other one already, but I would like to kind of bounce it around. Was like, how exciting is this that they're making changes specifically for Wild?
It's good. It's really good. I just don't want them to stop here. I don't want them to stop at balance changes. I want them to treat Wild like it matters in lots of other ways too.
Yes, absolutely. But it's Team 5. They tend to work in baby steps.
By the way, there is a this has not been announced, but they nerfed your Wild Legend rank. It used to be that they would display the highest one you were, right? So let's say you were Legend in Wild and Standard, but you were rank 5 Legend in Wild, but you were rank 200 Legend in Standard. They would show you rank 5 Wild. Now apparently they just show the Standard one, which is stupid. So
if you're Legend in both, they'll just show Standard.
They just show Standard.
So what if you're Legend in Wild and not Legend yet in Standard?
I think they show Wild in that scenario.
Because technically Legend is higher, but
essentially they consider Wild Standard to just be a higher rank than Wild Legend, no matter what.
I think if we started a podcast reviewing truffles and caviar, we would have a larger audience than the amount of players that are affected by that particular.
It's a weird one, but it's still very bizarre that it was done. Why?
Yeah, why?
Does it seem intentional, or could it be a bug?
It's got to be unintentional, right? I don't know. It just seems like a weird thing to just do on purpose. But anyway, it was brought to my attention by some of the Wild players that I converse with.
Gotcha, but very cool. And then the other fun question to always bounce around, and I feel like, Bills, I know your answer, but are we dusting our Avianas?
Nope.
I am not. I mean, I think that this, and chat room said it a little bit earlier, in terms of Aviana, I actually like the fact that they just changed her mana cost to kind of disrupt the ease of this combo, but they didn't make it so that it's totally unplayable. And I really like the like Aviana-Kun combo. I know it got a little bit out of control with the last expansion, but I really like the idea of it. And I feel like this was a good and necessary change without making the card unplayable. I like Aviana. I'm going to keep her.
Yeah, same. To me, Aviana is just one of the most fun cards to experiment with in Hearthstone.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to me, Aviana is like my Yogg. Like, this is when I'm like, yes, this is the kind of weirdness that I want to try and build around.
Well, she's always going to be potentially very, very powerful. Like, there's always going to be interesting stuff that you can do with her if you put her in a deck in Wild. So I think she's worth hanging on to, just because she's always potentially going to do something cool with or without Kun. Just the idea of your minions being able to cost 1, you're always going to be able to do Aviana, innervate something on turn 10, which I think is always going to be a really cool, interesting build around card.
There's kind of a fun deck too that you could play with her that was Dollmaster Dorian, and you would play N'Zoth. Yeah. You would play N'Zoth, and then you would play Dollmaster Dorian, Aviana-Kun, and you would just like every time, and then you would Juicy Psych Melon, right? And then it would draw these giant cards, but they would put 1/1 versions of them onto the board. It was pretty sweet. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those cards. Yeah, like there's just so many things you haven't even thought of yet that you can do that are just really cool.
Yeah. Well, finally, Giggling Inventor. Which is funny because Mana Wyrm and Aviana are way older. But to me, I feel like I have aged prematurely in how long it has taken to get a Giggling Inventor change. Also going up in mana cost, but by 2.
Mm-hmm.
By 2 mana. It is 7 mana now for Giggling Inventor.
So we talked like Giggling Inventor does essentially put 5 mana worth of stuff onto the board. But when you combine cards into one, and you get the flexibility type of thing going on, they generally should cost more, right, than the straight up like 1-to-1 cost of what they're actually doing, because you're putting 3 cards into one essentially, right? So
you're only spending 1 card out of hand. Like, card advantage is still a thing. Yeah, and it is worth something in Hearthstone. Now,
the interesting thing though, because like a lot of us, I think, talked about make it 6 mana. That makes sense. But we do see what happened with Spreading Plague when you just bumped it by 1. It didn't really do much.
Didn't do anything.
Yeah. So we really want to do stuff, bumping it by 2. If the idea is, let's make this card much less powerful. This is massive. The other thing, though, is that we do live in a world with Gen Greymane. So, if you make it 6, suddenly you've got even Warlock is putting Gigglings in now. And would that be a huge problem? Probably.
That's true. Yeah, the whole odd even thing does need to be taken into account now. Yeah. So keeping it as an odd card was probably a good call.
Similarly, like Call to Arms needed to be 5 because of odd can't play it because it's then summoning 1 cost card. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to like elegantly fit it in now to the packages.
And I think that like the reason that this ended up being so powerful, because I mean, in terms of like attacks into it and stuff, it still slows things down along the same lines as something like Sludge Belcher. But because of the design of the card, with the fact that it's spread over 3 bodies that you get all at one time, I think that was the really, really big problem with this card that they didn't necessarily foresee, is that so many minion focused like buff type decks, so like the token decks and Quest Rogue, just love this card, right? It's not meant for that. It's meant as an anti-aggro tool. So I think that was the big problem with this card that they really didn't see in testing or in design or whatever, was that it basically got used as the intended use, which was the anti-aggro, but then also got used by all these like aggressive token minion oriented decks. And they were like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And that's why my big like surprise omission from this change is Spreading Plague.
Yeah, because Spreading Plague is now cheaper than Giggling Inventor.
yeah, what the actual bonker shit is going on is what was racing through my mind.
Well,
Like,
okay.
I'm Giggling Inventor. Say I'm Giggling Inventor. I work at Hearthstone.
Sure.
And my boss comes in and says, "Sorry, bud, we're demoting you." You look over at Spreading Plague and you're just like, I am plotting the day I get to pull the rug out from under you.
Now, let me just give the anti-argument to that, because I read the Reddit, thread, and the entire thing was, where are the Druid nerfs, right? That entire thread was that.
I know. I stopped reading because I was just like, I can't.
Yeah. But you know where the Druid nerfs are? They're where they're supposed to be, because Druid is actually not that strong. It's just not. Like, look at stats, people, and stop just feeling it. Like, actually pay attention. Druid has so many classes that just beat the crap out of it. And I do understand it is strong, but
I think not necessarily.
Yeah, it's not blowing up the game strong. Anyway,
not necessarily looking at Druid as a class as a whole, but just like Spreading Plague itself. And I think the reason why people, myself included, really don't like playing against Druid right now is that when Spreading Plague just so punishes minion play, and it's so hard to tell with the way Druid is right now what deck you're playing against until you're like past the point of playing your deck the way you want to play your deck, right? Like, there's such a core of Druid that then they just put a few cards in that change their end game win condition. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that if you can't tell what the Druid is, like by the time you realize it's Taunt Druid, you've been not playing your minions because you're afraid of Spreading Plague. And by the time you realize that they don't have it, you're like, oh, well, my whole game plan's screwed now anyways. So it's like that one card that punishes minion play just makes all of it feel so bad, that I just wish that that card had been changed along with this. Like, not all the rest of Druid, and Druid has a whole ton of problems, and Druid does a lot of things really, really well right now. But you're right, as a class, they're not necessarily overpowered. The ladder isn't all Druid because they just beat everybody all of the time. But I feel like Spreading Plague just existing and punishing playing minions, it makes every game against Druid just kind of feel bad.
Yes, and it's a card you can play around, whereas Giggling Inventor you can't. Like, to me, I see what you're saying. It does punish a certain way to play Hearthstone, but it's a card. Mm-hmm. I like cards where I can go, okay, let me play around this card, which is one of the reasons why like Mind Control tech is like kind of always been interesting when it comes back into the meta. It's always kind of interesting because it's like when you're playing Hearthstone, like so I've been playing a lot of Magic Arena too, right? And you gotta like that. If you think playing against Spreading Plague is frustrating, try playing against any blue deck, right? Because you're just like, oh, so just playing your deck punishes playing Magic, okay? Because you're like, okay, can I play this spell? Oh, they countered it. Oh, can I play this spell? No, they countered that too. Can I play this spell? No, they countered that. Like, at least to me, cards like Spreading Plague are like, I can think about it and I can adjust strategy to better suit my game against it, right? Whereas the card like Giggling Inventor, it's like, doesn't matter what I do, they just go, I got 5 mana, boom. You know what I mean? And
true. And again, like, I'm not saying Giggling shouldn't have been changed. I think this is a fine change, good change, yay. But I just think Spreading Plague probably should have been looked at again.
And to defend myself as well, that's not necessarily what I was getting at either. I wasn't saying burn Druid to the ground. They're the most oppressive piece of crap we've ever seen. No, this is not what I was getting at all. It was just that while we were on the subject of another reason for Giggling Inventor's nerf being unintended usage in more aggressive play, if I were talking to a Team 5 dev right now, I would want to say, well, what makes Giggling Inventor different from Spreading Plague? And save your emails. We know, yes, you're guaranteed the bodies are Giggling Inventor. If there's, if there's nothing on board, Spreading Plague is worth nothing.
Well, it's worth the 1/5, the 6-mana 1/5.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, worth nothing.
But I will say this: if they were to change a Druid card, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have changed any Druid card, I would have liked them to just say, also, by the way, Wild Growth is Hall of Famed. Like, that's the card that I want to see changed more than Spreading Plague. I think this whole thing where Druid just like ramp into ramp is just the thing that annoys me more than anything else. I could play around Spreading Plague. I cannot play around turn 2 Wild Growth.
Willie Dills for president. That's my follow up.
It's just enough already. The damn turn 2 wild growth.
Yeah, and that also speaks to your point, Jocelyn, which is like, I don't know what Druid I'm playing against. Maybe Spreading Plague wouldn't be as bad if I had a tell as to what the hell type of Druid I was playing against. I would argue no, because like as much as I can, yeah, you can play around it, but if my deck is token based, I can't win if I can't play, if I can't make a board.
You can't. Like we've seen
slower.
We've watched some of these pro players do a pretty effective job. It is there, it is possible, even in a token based strategy. It's just, yeah, it's tricky. It's very tricky, and and you're right, it punishes minion based Hearthstone play, which is kind of like what they're trying to push us towards. But
yes.
I find it to be an interesting card that creates interesting scenarios. Yeah, and to me, like interesting cards should exist in the game. Like even if they're very powerful, I like them to exist, and I want them.
That's the type of thing where I think it'd be another less so for a debate here, but an interesting question for a dev, which is, well, what is your goal? How much do you think about like what you want the meta to be? Because it seems like right now you have all of these tools to play minion heavy decks, and yet there's this one card that exists in a popular class that seems to be putting the kibosh on that. And is that intentional? Does it bother you the way it seems to bother certain players? I don't know. I'm curious.
I think if anything, I could see Plague going down to like 1/4s or something like that, and that would be kind of more. It would be more interesting, probably, because it would be a card that Druid would have to think about putting in their deck. Like right now, you just like throw it in just because, unless you're Taunt Druid and you don't want to resummon 1/5s, right? Because you're trying to summon 4/12s, right? But I think it would be like I would like to see the card be at least a thought for Druids. You know what I mean? Kind of like Giggling wasn't a thought, and they talk about it in this article that you just throw it. There's no downside. They literally say that, right? They said there's virtually no downside, right? So Spreading Plague is also a card that essentially has no downside, because even if you get 2 1/5s or something like that, it's still like, okay, that was decent, and I slowed the game down enough where I can now get to what I think is an uninteresting card, Ultimate Infestation.
Yes.
Right? So yeah, there's definitely room to have done something to it and still keep it an interesting card. I hate just the circle jerk that happens in Reddit. Like one person says something about Druid, and then it's just like vomit on my computer screen of like a million people echoing that sentiment. I'm like, is anybody thinking about this, or are you just saying stuff? Like, Druid is fine. They're fine.
You're describing.
They could have done something. Yeah, sure. They could have done something. They didn't. It's fine.
The way of the internet. We all get caught up in it at some point or another.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's move on. We have a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about.
Jocelyn, we have an HCT Fall Champion, and I've been in like a whole other universe, so I'm going to pass to you.
Right, we do. So the HCT Fall Championship was this past week, and the amazing Canadian language hacker came away with the win. I'm so excited for him. He's a really, really nice guy. He's really committed to the game. And like we talked about last week, he came up through the whole like test scene and everything else. So he's been with the game and kind of progressed through the esports path, I guess, that Hearthstone and Team 5 and Blizzard have set out. So it was really good to see him succeed. And obviously he's Canadian, so huzzah. But so I was really, really happy that Language Hacker won. We also had Just Saying, Bloody Face, and Blood Trail, who will be moving on to the World Championships. I almost said BlizzCon, and I was like, no. We did that last week, and it's not actually BlizzCon anymore. But that means 3 America's champions and 1 APAC champion move on. We didn't have anyone from China or EU moving on to the World Championship from our Fall Championships. So,
you know what card Language Hacker didn't play in his Druid deck?
What card?
Spreading Plague.
I know.
Get out of here, Dills.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I can't handle you anymore.
I'm just saying. Well, and also just saying. Didn't qualify. That was sweet.
Give us a little. Give us a little bit, Dills. Just a little bit.
It's just, Taunt Druid was like clearly, it was amazing to watch how good Taunt Druid was. I was like, man, I'm not playing that deck enough, am I? Because it is disgusting when you man, in a world where no one is playing Polymorph, that deck is insane. The one, I guess, bad thing is sometimes you run into Shutterwalk Shaman who plays Hex, but it just dominated. It was great.
That is the deck I come back to like once a month. I'm sitting there, I'm like, I want to play Hearthstone, but I don't want to play like Hearthstone. I don't want to get on and grind with the same decks that I have a good win rate with. I just want to get weird. And
Sure.
for me right now, that's Taunt Druid. I do the same thing in Heroes of the Storm. Like it's late at night. I want to play heroes, but I want to play like try-hard heroes, and it's Abathur, and it's always been Abathur. And big Taunt Druid is like my Heroes of the Storm Abathur for Hearthstone right now.
Yeah, it's also right now I think one of the most demoralizing decks when the thing happens, right? Because it's like the only way to N'Zoth anymore. So yeah, it's crazy. Like you just keep doing it. You just keep on doing it. You're like, hey, you know what's better than 1 412? A bunch of 412s.
Yeah, it's gnarly. But anyways, keeping it moving. Ben Thompson had an interview with VentureBeat that just went up and kind of talking about tournament mode, almost a postmortem, as much as a postmortem can be for something that never, really made it out to the public. But there were some, I would say, obvious takeaways here. They said that they scrapped it, but it is more of an indefinite hiatus, which deals is what you kind of, that was what you locked on to when the news broke that tournament mode was we were not getting the beta anytime soon. And so that's fine. But again, he just says there's no timeline. And to me, I still have the same reaction of like in Team 5 speed, that means
like 4 years from now.
Well, yeah, later on in the interview, he did specifically say that's something we'll talk about in the years to come. And I was like, oh.
Well, the thing is, like, nothing in this article really was like a surprise to me.
Yeah, right.
All of it was essentially what I assumed, and
what was a surprise was that it was Ben Thompson giving this information. I was like, are you the art director? Like, did he?
There's nobody left, man.
Take a different.
They can't go to Yongwu anymore.
Well, whatever the case, if Thompson is moving up the ranks, I am all for that. But back to the article itself, I don't think there were any surprises in here. They did say that mobile is a determining factor for new features when it comes to the size of the client and the download. But tech issues and team size did not kill tournament mode. It was scrapped. They said it was scrapped because the long announcement lead time allowed the community to formulate their own ideas about what tournament mode should be, and what Team 5 was building was very far away from that. I think this is the biggest bullcrap statement in this entire.
It super is. No, it's definitely. This is the type of talk that companies do when they're just trying to make excuses.
Yeah, and when I say that kind of stuff, I want people to understand. Like, I'm not like Ben Thompson. How dare, this is, someone fed him this, and this is what he had to say.
This is the company line. The reason is the community decided what it should be, and we had decided something different, and we realized, oh my God, we're not doing the thing that they want. We need to, retool. Which I assumed was happening regardless. It didn't matter when they announced it. It just was. It was that they weren't giving us what we wanted. We knew it as soon as they were like, bans, we're not sure. We're like, everyone was like, what? No, hold on. You're making tournament mode and you're just not putting that in? Like,
and that's where I rebel against the statement of like, it was how early we announced it. We're like, no, we've been telling you for 4 years what it should be.
Yeah, and that's my big problem with this too, is like I agree with the kind of the second part of the statement saying that what Team 5 was building was not what the community wanted, but I don't agree with the first part saying that the long announcement lead time had anything to do with anything, because it's not like they announced tournament mode and we went, whoa, what? Tournament mode? What?
Mind blown, man.
Yeah.
Think of the possibilities.
Yes, exactly.
Let's all drop acid and talk about it.
We had been talking about tournament mode for years. So I feel like that's something that you're right. It's very like PR talk. It's very formulaic, but it feels like they're blaming the community for something that I feel like in this case is Blizzard's failing. I think that they should have had a better idea of what the community would want, and they should have started in a better place. And I don't think that's on us. And they make it sound like tournament mode failing is on us, kind of.
Well, you could take it that way. I don't take it that way. I take it as, them. It doesn't sound like they're trying to blame us, but I get why people think that. And I also get, like when we talked last week about Mike Dene's response, people just instantly jump on the negative aspects of it. And I feel like it's poor communication. It's not that they're saying, well, you asked for too much. It's like, I think the reality of it is it shows that they're slightly out of touch. with what the game needs to be.
This felt very out of touch.
Yeah, like to me, it's like they're like, oh my god, we didn't realize that we were making the wrong thing. You know, and that I'm like, how? Like what? How? Like what is wrong with you? Because it's so obvious that we don't need the perfect tournament mode the day of launch. We don't. But we don't need essentially an insult to our intelligence when it comes out, right? We need something that at least serves the purpose of what we are all already doing in competitive Hearthstone, which is making our own freaking tournaments and figuring out how to make it work with the limited resources they're giving us. We need something that at least streamlines that process. That's all.
Right. Well, and I think it speaks to the way people are feeling right now, and just we have a communication problem with Team 5, and so because we're not really communicating, or like neither side is really feeling heard, because I'm sure this happens on Blizzard's end too. This isn't just like we're saying Blizzard isn't communicating or whatever. Like I'm sure that Blizzard feels like the community isn't hearing them a lot as well. So we have a communication problem here between the community and Team 5. And that means that because we're already in a bad negative headspace about their communication, that when they communicate something that could be taken either way, it gets taken negatively, because we're just like, well, sure, of course it's our fault. Like, because that's just what we expect, because we're already in a negative headspace.
Yeah. And so, that's why I look at this and I'm just like, why did you even give this interview? Because I don't understand what positive reactions are supposed to come out of this. I mean, you can just go, the best they can hope for is, oh, that makes sense. No one's really excited.
There was a lot in here, and again, we're asking for more communication. So there was a lot in here that was kind of like transparency, saying like, you know, it wasn't the tech. The Unity has been great, and we've been working with the Unity team all the way through building Hearthstone. Like the tech is fine. It wasn't that we didn't have enough people, which has also been thrown out there with all the recent departures from Team 5, as people were saying like the driving force behind tournament mode left the company, whoever that happened to be. And he's saying that's not the case either. It's just that we couldn't land on a tournament mode that would make everybody happy, because everyone had so many different ideas of what tournament mode has been, which, to be honest, has been the same thing. And this is why I hate the whole long announcement line, because it's just wrong. Because they've talked about tournament mode prior to talking about the fact that they were actually working on it, to basically give us this other company line, which is nobody can agree on what tournament mode is. So this is a problem that they saw coming for years. And what they basically came out and said, and again, I think this speaks to the transparency, and I think is a good thing, is that they did come out and say that they're trying to make all features for everyone, which I think is a mistake from their design philosophy standpoint, because you're never going to make everybody happy. So make tournament mode for hardcore players, make another mode for casual players. Like there's no reason why you can't have a whole bunch of different features, some that are aimed at hardcore players, some that are aimed at casual players. Like, I don't understand why everything has to be for everyone. And I think that's the mistake in their design right now.
Well, and that's the other one. For me, that's the other one that's, to me, I look at it and say, well, that's untrue, or at least that's not my experience. The only people I hear from that think solo modes are for everyone, I hear from through the show. I don't know anyone personally who get excited and grind out the solo modes. That to me, I look at that and like, no, that's clearly for the casual audience.
Well,
like,
yeah, and I mean, I look at that. I look at the solo stuff. I look at Tavern Brawl. Like I look at that, basically, I look at that as kind of like more casual Hearthstone, and I look at like Arena, Wild, and Standard as like the more hardcore competitive modes. But that's just my view. And what Blizzard is saying is they want everyone to be able to jump into everything, and they want stuff to be fun for everyone. And sometimes they hit on it better than other times, but it's still like it's an impossible goal. So I find it funny that that's the goal that they've set, because they're never going to please everyone with a change that they make or a mode that they create. It's just impossible. You can't make a hardcore Legend player happy with the same thing that you're going to make a brand new player happy with. So I think that what a lot of the community is calling for is just saying like, okay, we feel like you just gave like new ranks to new players with a whole bunch of like pack rewards and stuff. You know, we've already got Tavern Brawl. You've come out most recently with the single player content, which is great for more casual players. as hardcore competitive players, we would like you to do something for us now, which I think is what a lot of people thought tournament mode was going to be. And then another point that they made in this article was saying that they weren't developing tournament mode with esports competition in mind. It was meant for like the at-home players. And I think that that's another design flaw in tournament mode and why it was probably such a problem for them to design in the first place. But they weren't making it for competitive players. They were trying to appeal widely to the Hearthstone audience, and I think that's probably why it fell flat, is that they were trying to do too much instead of focusing and saying, we want to put in client a thing that we can run HCT on and give people the HCT experience. And so because they didn't focus in on that and they tried to make it super accessible and something that you would use to play with your friends in front of the fire, like yeah. But again, this is my view of tournament mode. This is not the widely held community view of tournament mode, and that's what Blizzard's been telling us for years.
I generally don't like to cast blanket statements, but I'm going to cast one now, which is, come on, we can all agree that it needed bans. We can all agree, at least that minimum, like, come on, it needed bans. That's ridiculous. This is like, what do you mean? Oh, we were not thinking about, like, come on, you knew we wanted bans. That's absurd. But yeah, I'm on the same page with all of this, of course, and that's, like I said, I didn't read anything in this that shocked me or seemed like news, except there's one line in here, which is mobile is a determining factor, not the size of the client or the download. Saying it wasn't Unity was a little bit interesting, not as interesting as Broad's new company announcing that they're working in Unity because they're looking for a Unity developer. So I look at that and I'm go, okay, yeah, it definitely wasn't Unity, because you think the guys that, like, everyone that just left, if that was a limiting factor in making what they wanted to make, you think they'd immediately go right back to it? I don't think so.
Magic the Gathering is on Unity as well.
Yes, which is the other, which are comments on the Reddit, but don't have as many upvotes as the people.
By the way, I after all that negativity, I just want to bring up this last line here, because I do think that there is positivity in this interview as well. GamesBeat trying to kind of sum it up into a soundbite-ish type sentence. So this is an example of the dev team listening to the community and saying, we hear you, we'll give it another go. Thompson says, absolutely, I think that's a good way to put it. I took all of the negativity out of this article and I read that last line. I said, cool. Thank you at least for not giving us an absolute piece of crap and saying, tournament mode, done, we did it. Yay! Like, I'd much rather have them make a good tournament mode than give us a piece of crap and then never touch it again. And 5 years later, we still don't have bans. You know what I mean? I'd much rather them retool and start from scratch and do what we want. So, like, all that aside, there is a positive spin on this.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. And like that is a historical Blizzard, right? Like, sure, they scrapped their next MMO. Overwatch came out of that. We've never seen StarCraft Ghost, and we're never gonna see it.
Yeah,
this is,
if they're like, putting out a piece of crap, then don't put it out.
Yeah, Daz Ladorn in the chat room said it best. Where the hell is my dance studio in World of Warcraft? On the box. It's on the box.
You get it. You get it in the auction house, like in one of those micro holidays.
I feel like what happened with spectator mode, I don't want to have it with tournament mode, which is we rush and put out a piece of crap, and then we just stop touching it. Right? Like, we need. We needed that tool so badly, but like, we don't need this. This is a tool that doesn't prevent me from playing Hearthstone and having fun. It's a tool I want very much. It is a thing that I think will make the game experience a lot more fun for a lot more people. It will also streamline many things that we do as community members and people who put on events, right? It helps us in a huge way. But if 5 years from now we're still looking at cards upside down and there's no bans and blah, blah, like, that would be really upsetting. So hopefully this just means we scrap it, we start from scratch, and we put out the thing that's right.
Yep.
I'm going to take it as that, and I'm going to walk away from this.
Yeah. You want to hear the most hilarious sponsor to follow this entire conversation?
Oh, yeah. This is amazing.
Who wants to hear it? Guess who today's episode is sponsored by? Everybody.
Another game without tournament mode.
This episode is sponsored by MTG Arena. can't wait to hear the responses on this one. So Magic the Gathering Arena is now available in open beta, everybody. This is it. This is the card game that started it all. This is the card game that could tell you to get off its lawn. Like, that's how old Magic the Gathering is, if somehow you haven't heard of it. So I am in a weird portion of my circle of friends, which is my first time playing Magic was in my mid-20s. Most of my nerdy friends have been playing it since they could barely read.
It's the game that forced you to learn how to read good.
This is the game that gave me the knowledge to be excited for Hearthstone.
Sure.
Because, like, if I hadn't played Magic and then Hearthstone got announced, I mean, I already was like kind of like, well, this seems kind of small scale for Blizzard. But if Magic, I probably wouldn't. I don't know. I'm sure I would have started the show because I'm not sure I would have known to get excited for this.
Yeah, that card games could be so cool, right? Before Magic, all card games featured 52 cards and 4 suits and aces, kings, and queens.
I knew.
Yeah, and then these guys, Wizards of the Coast, were like, you know what we could do? We could put little monsters on them and make them fight each other. It'd be sweet. And then
we'll
that's what
tell
happened.
our players that they're wizards. And they're going to have a great time. So yeah, but anyway, Magic the Gathering Arena is now an open beta. You can go to mtgarena.com right now and just download it and just start playing.
Free. Get in there. Go.
And listen, they are sponsored, but I can tell you it's fun. And I can tell you as a free-to-play player so far in MTG Arena, it is fun. I am having a really good time. I'm really impressed by how they've managed to translate Magic the Gathering finally, like real honest to God Magic into like a PC playable game. I've always enjoyed Magic the Gathering Online, but my concerns with the game are more than well available on the history of this podcast feed. And MTG Arena is what I have always wanted.
No, they finally figured out how to make Magic the Gathering. I could sit down at my computer and play it, and it's an enjoyable experience instead of frustrating and annoying, which MTG Online oftentimes was. Also, they did away with things like you play a match and then it's got a 60-minute timer like you're playing chess and stuff. It's now just like similar to Hearthstone. Each turn has a timer and you got timeouts and things. It's like the whole thing has been streamlined into a great experience. As a non-free-to-play Magic player, oh my god, it's way more fun, Garrett. You should try it. Spend a few $100 and make yourself a Grixis control deck because that is the bomb.
I am really excited to get home because I'm going to start playing sealed events on it because it's always been my favorite way to play Magic, and I can do it.
Yeah,
from the comfort of my boxers.
For just a few thousand gems, you can
which
play
is
a sealed
generally
event.
frowned upon when you're playing in-person Magic, right? Showing up in just your boxer.
Generally,
depends where you're playing.
I guess so.
I mean, if you don't have a cool swinging local comic shop.
That's not where I thought you were going with swinging. I'll be honest.
just full stop. We got a cool swinging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and by the way, for an open beta, it is very feature rich. So get in there and try it out, man. Lots of stuff to do.
I'm impressed, to say the least. I'm impressed by MTG Arena. So go check it out, mtgarena.com. We thank them for sponsoring this episode of Angry Chicken. And we look forward to hilarious responses from all of you about an episode of a Hearthstone podcast being sponsored by Magic the Gathering. So go and check that out. Now, Dills, it's time for that strategy bumper.
Oh, yep. Here it comes.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay.
All right, so what has been on my mind because I have been traveling is playing this game with not a lot do which means I've been playing this game
the way Hearthstone was intended to be played.
Actually, yes. I do feel a lot of the extremely heated debates on this podcast come from a group of people who want to play this game for longer stints than maybe it was originally intended.
Yeah, you're supposed to, you're supposed to not develop. I'm just gonna stop right there. You're supposed to be able to sit down on the toilet while you're at a break from work.
I want to know,
and then not have to visit the doctor about painful hemorrhoids later. Okay. I went there.
Okay, that's what I think
yeah, you just get a quick hunter game in, you get a quick zoo game in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
You don't get up and your legs are asleep. That's what I'm saying.
Should not develop blood clots from playing Hearthstone. Yeah, so that's the way I've been playing this game. And honestly, it's been so refreshing. And it's just had me thinking about the game in a slightly different way, which is, what the hell should I be playing if I don't have a lot of time? I've got 5 to 10 minutes of quiet time, and I've been, if anyone doesn't know, I've been helping at a trade show for my wife's the company that she works for, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't have time for a game. Someone's gonna ask me to come do something anytime now. So what do you play? And
Monster Hunt, baby.
I was just going to say that. Outside of actual ladder play, that's usually my go-to when I'm traveling because I rarely have decent internet connection. So that's what I play is Monster Hunt because if I DC, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, definitely not Arena. That's for sure.
No.
I actually had this issue the other day. I brought my iPad to work to watch the rest of HCT and bartending, and then I was like, HCT was over. And I was like, okay, well, I had this iPad here. Let's play some Hearthstone because there was no customers, right? But then I was like, I can't get on the ladder. If someone comes in and orders a margarita, I'm going to rope out.
You have to make the margarita.
Yeah, I'm going to rope out and I'm going to lose a game, lose a star and all that. So what I ended up doing was going into the solo content. I was doing Blackrock Mountain Heroic and stuff like that, where there's no turn timer. But if you do want to play on the ladder, yeah, I think the decks are definitely Odd Rogue, Zoo, Odd Pally.
I've actually seen a lot more Paladin lately.
Every time I get frustrated because I'm like, I just want to play a new class and also climb, but I'm not climbing. I go back to Odd Paladin, and it just works. It always works for me.
Sure.
But I have so many damn wins with Paladin. I don't need wins on Paladin anymore.
To me, the problem that I have with the odd and even decks is that it's the Kibler thing, that the games are boring because they play the same,
Right.
Which is
well, but playing the same is really good when you're trying to
play quick. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then it's like, okay, it's turn 2, hit the button, right?
Yeah,
I know what to do.
Exactly. So I found myself, I'm like, I was really thinking about mulligans. I'm like, what decks have the easiest mulligans? Because I just want to get into the game and let's get started. I don't even at the very beginning, I don't want to be hung up thinking oh, okay, my class is my opponent is this class. What should I mulligan for? And it's like, no, I'm playing Odd Paladin. It's basically the same no matter what. Let's just go. Start the game. Let's do this.
I think Odd Paladin is probably the actual correct answer here because Odd, Rogue, Zoo do end up getting really complex board states. And Odd Paladin generally does not. Because all your minions are 1/1s. They tie for 1.
Yeah.
Can you add 1+1+1?
Yeah, 5 mana.
Yeah. But when you're playing Zoo, you're like, oh, where do I Fungalmancer? Do I put it between these? Do I put it between these? You know what I mean? There's a lot more going on. So
but then there's also a conversation to be had about which decks are good if you mess up. How bad is Zoo if you don't place your Fungalmancer perfectly? You could probably still eke out a win here and there by less than optimal play.
Sure. That's true. And also sometimes you just make, happy ghouls on turn 1 and then the guy cries. Right?
Earlier when you were talking about Playment's design, I'm like, is it really a downside anymore, Dills? Because damaging yourself for the heal later on is kind of an upside now.
I know, right? Yeah. At this point, it's actually kind of interesting. I think the most complex deck I would try to play if I knew that I might have to get up and go is probably something like a Druid, because even that it's I get to my end game pretty quickly. So
yeah.
But not by the way, not steal your deck Druid, not Togwaggle.
Yeah, not
Druid.
Togwaggle.
It would be Malaga's Druid. Yeah,
I was gonna say probably not Taunt Druid either, because Taunt Druid has, I feel just a demoralizing win condition. How many times you just bring back this wall before the person concedes. Whereas
sometimes
Malaga's,
you Master O card on turn 6, and then that's true. Then they concede. Yeah. But most of the time it's repetitive bringing back of things. Yeah.
So versus Malagos, which is very much get there as fast as possible, and then I have a win condition and go and done, as opposed to something that drags out a little bit longer, like Togwaggle or Taunt.
Yeah, and that's another place my brain went when I was thinking about this, because we were talking in earlier planning the show, and we're like, what should we talk about strategy? I'm like, I have a weird thing I kind of want to put out there, and it's this. And when I started thinking about it, I started thinking about where do I go net decking? Because there's options. If my goal is I want to win quickly and easily, I don't want to think about my play too hard. Where do I go and find net decks? And I think it's HS Replay versus something like Tempo Storm, because you look at Tempo Storm's tier list, and it's tier 1 is a lot of complicated decks with interesting board states and combos that you have to be concerned with, which makes a lot of sense. And it also honestly plays, I think, into the disparity between the tiers that you see over on something like Tempo Storm and a more statistics-based rundown of something like HS Replay, is that while Togwaggle Druid may be tier 1 in Tempo Storm's estimation when played correctly, when we look at the statistics of the majority of the player base playing a deck like that, it's probably not always being piloted perfectly and probably dragging down its win rate.
By the way, some of those decks are no longer going to be decks because of the nerfs. I think Quest Rogue got hit pretty damn hard by Giggling Inventor, and obviously Tempo Mage is another deck that fairly popular right now. Got pretty nerfed as well. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes from here, but we do know that Zoo will still be good. We do know that Odd Paladin, Odd Rogue will still be good. Yeah. But you're right. Like those decks, you don't want to sit down and Death Rattle Hunter and try to figure out like how to cube properly when you're trying to get a game in quickly.
Yeah. But I would say we haven't mentioned Puzzle Lab yet. I have also been enjoying that in short little spurts. I'm on harder puzzles pretty much across the board, so I've maybe gotten like 4 done since I've been here.
They get really difficult at the end. The problem with Puzzle Lab for me is I completed it and there's no replayability to it at all.
Yeah.
Like
once
literally
you figure it
none.
Out, yeah.
It's like finishing a Sudoku and then doing the same Sudoku again. It's like, no reason
Let's
to do
revisit this in a year, Dills, because I've totally replayed Portal and have felt like an idiot all over again.
No, I could see, a year later I forget all of it and then I try it out again. I could find it fun, I'm sure. But
yeah. So,
I will say that there are a couple of those puzzles that I know that I solved because I got past them, but I have no idea why it worked.
Sure. Like sometimes you're just putting things out on the board
over and over because I was frustrated, and then all of a sudden it just worked one time, and I was like, "Wait, what did I do different? What did I do?" And I have no idea, and I'm just like, "Well, I'm past it. Okay, let's go."
Yep. And to Arena, I will say I have enjoyed kind of building a deck while just slowly over the course of a day when I have weird little breaks. But I'm also that weird kind of person that likes spending way too much time assembling Transmog and World of Warcraft and picking who goes in my list of 10 heroes and Heroes of the Storm. I like that kind of shopkeep in between actually playing the game. And there's not really anything like that in Hearthstone.
Yeah, by the way, I know we already got paid by Magic the Gathering, but oh my god, drafting and then throwing cards in and out of your deck after games, being like, this deck isn't really working, let's try these. Oh, I want to do that in Arena so bad. I want to draft 40 cards and then sideboard.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of how much I want that in Hearthstone.
Okay, so we've been begging for tournament mode for almost 5 years now. Not almost 4 or 5 years. It's not happening. Are we switching to sideboarding in the Arena?
Yeah, sideboarding in Arena. Let's go.
Okay, we're all on the same page.
New battle cry.
Cool. So cool. I'm on.
It's the best thing ever, man. It's so fun. Like you build like a Dimir deck and then you're like, I'm gonna splash red, and then you're like, splashing red didn't work, never mind. And it's just, I don't know, I love it. It's great. Anyway, that would be a fun way to play real quick too, because you could just be like, I'm gonna mess with my deck a little bit. I'm not even gonna queue a game. I'm just gonna theory craft, right? Yep. And then I'll play later, but I've done some pre-theory crafting for when I do have some time to play.
I would argue that if you're stuck to your phone, building an Arena deck slowly is really the only way I like doing it, because deck building on a phone is just abysmal.
Sure.
It's so bad.
The problem with drafting and on your phone is, when you're drafting on your computer and you see the deck as it's coming together, and on your phone you have to press a button to show the deck, and you're like, okay, wait, what do I have again? How many 2-drops? Okay, back to the picks. It's just, it's not smooth.
Yeah.
It's not a smooth transition.
It's not great, but yeah, that's just an interesting thing. Is BlizzCon's right around the corner, so if you're thinking about traveling, you want to keep playing ladder. Just keep in the back of your mind, and if you come up with some interesting suggestions for travel decks, which is what I'm going to start calling these, send them in. TACpodcast@gmail.com. But before we take an email or two and wrap this all up. We have one more sponsor to thank today, and that's Harry's. They are back. Harry's Razors are here sponsoring this episode. If you would like to check out their offerings, head on over to harrys.com/TAC. All three of us, as mentioned on many podcasts before, but if you haven't heard about it, all three of us are Harry's converts, no matter what part of our body we're shaving.
All parts. By the way, dude, I saw Harry's at Walmart the other day.
In case you're not aware, everybody.
Yes. They had a big Harry's display at the Walmart. I was like, what? They're selling this in stores now?
I saw one at Target the other day.
Yeah, I was like, things are going good for Harry's these days. By the way, don't buy it at Walmart. Do buy it, but buy it from us. Harrys.com/TAC.
Listen, I'm sure Harry's would love you to buy their product wherever
and whenever. Yes, but we would like it.
Yes, but definitely check out harrys.com/TAC. They make great razors. They're at an affordable price. They can keep showing up right to your doorstep so that you don't have to go out if you don't want to and pick them up. And if you've never tried Harry's before, you can redeem a trial set over at harrys.com/TAC. In this trial set, you will get their five blade razor, a weighted handle, foaming shave gel, which is just it's just a lovely morning ritual. Just you lather it up, draw stupid things on your face with foam, and try it out. You also get a travel cover so you can take it with you. So if you're going to BlizzCon, it's kind of weird, but I just want one person at BlizzCon to walk by and be like, "Yo, brought my Harry's trial with the travel cover. Thanks, dog." I just want that. I'm gonna high five you in the merch line because I'm waiting 2 hours for my Blizzard hat, but at least I'm well shaven. Because I brought my Harry's razor with me with my travel cover. So check it out, harrys.com/TAC. Redeem your trial set. Again, you get a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and travel cover. We thank them for their support. We thank you all for going to harrys.com/TAC. Now, let's crack open that mailbag. Dills.
Hello.
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
Yeah, you're doing it. Yeah,
I was muted is what happened right there.
All right.
Podcast at gmail.com. I'm gonna throw to you, Jocelyn. I feel like I've been talking too much because I'm back now.
All right. This one comes to us from Landon, who says, "Peaceful poultry. People have always wanted more formats for years. Tournament modes, sealed, constructed with specific sets, etc. Given the widespread demand and the lack of response from Blizzard, I'm surprised that third-party options never sprang up. Hearthstone Deck Tracker and HS Replay do fantastic jobs adding features that Blizzard's left out. Given the great work third-party developers have already demonstrated, I'm sure they could bridge the format gap with all the bells and whistles, like automatically enforced card bans, class bans, automated record keeping of who wins and loses matches, etc. So I wonder, why hasn't this happened? Is there some barrier to entry I'm not seeing? Thoughts?"
Oh boy, we should have a developer on this show.
I would think it's because the API itself isn't open. So as far as I know, Deck Tracker works with like recognizing things in the log, right?
Yeah, it reads log files.
Right. So it doesn't actually interact with the game itself the way that like an add-on would have to interact in order to do class bans. You could do automatic record keeping because that's what Deck Tracker essentially is in terms of who wins and loses matches. But as of right now, things like Battlefy aren't actually integrated into the client. So there's no automation there. It's all done by hand. But these third-party things do exist. I think Tempo Storm even has like a
sealed mode.
They have a sealed, yeah. So I mean, there are third-party things that exist. They just don't interact with the client
never caught
directly.
On.
Yeah, it definitely didn't.
Yeah.
But they exist. It just, I think, because Blizzard's API for Hearthstone isn't available the way it is for World of Warcraft, we don't have add-ons that can directly talk to the client.
It's not seamless enough. Is the real answer here? It's like sealed mode. I've done it a few times. It is pretty fun, but you have to essentially build your deck there, then go into the game, build your deck there. Whereas if something like this were to really work well, you'd build your deck there, and then you'd go into the game, and your deck would be there, right? And then you'd you also go and play your friend. Yeah, and I think the biggest problem too is just the limitations Hearthstone itself has put on it. So it's like, yeah, you can't truly just make other formats. Like Magic, if you really think about it, it's not like, yeah, there's a lot of formats where it's like Legacy, Vintage, Modern, where it literally the only difference is just which cards are available to you.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, like the most popular things have been things like Commander, EDH, and stuff like that, where it's like we literally just threw all the damn rules out and just started over again, right?
Yeah, created something new.
Yeah, and that's what Hearthstone just doesn't let you do at all right now. So even if you did come up with like, I've done this too. We did a tournament with subs and patrons and stuff where we picked 2 expansions and 1 adventure and was like, you can only build out of these. And people built, really weird decks and none of them really made sense, but it was just, and it was kind of fun. But again, it was just the amount of work that had to be done. The reward was not enough, right? Ultimately. So,
yeah.
Well, and there's no way to automate it in game or like actually restrict the deck building. Like you just basically have to go in and make wild decks and then say, okay, but don't use that. Don't use that. And it's like, I don't necessarily want to call it an honor system but it's just the kind of thing where like people can just make mistakes because
because again, it's not seamless.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there could be, maybe possibly a system that ran off of reading the logs or reading your screen, where if both parties had the same app, it could at least alert you that the other person is picking the deck that was banned, including a card that wasn't supposed to be in the format, something of that nature. That there's an interesting conversation to be had there. What I would like to see is this at least somewhat automate signing up and being matched with your opponent for a grassroots tournament. Because to me, from the outside looking in, like that's the big thing, the big kind of hurdle for me. I don't want to go to someone's website and look through schedules to find out a day I might be able to make it. I just want to come home and be like, I'm in the mood for a round of 8 tournament. Let me see if anyone's going on in the next 30 minutes that I can jump into. Something like that would be so cool. I would love a tool like that. And even if it's not perfect, I would be very on board for something like that from a third party.
Yep.
So
they
like
just need to open up their API.
In deck tracker somehow?
Yeah, something of that nature where you sign up, it has your BattleNet information, and maybe I'm imagining if it ran off of like logs or screen reading, you'd have to delete every other deck in your deck slots except what you're bringing to the tournament, depending on the format. But that would be better than nothing in my mind.
That's often a tournament rule, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like so if you haven't been playing in tournaments, or if you have, you're used to that.
There have been some clients that have tried to do this, but they've not really taken off. I'm trying to figure out. I can't even remember the freaking name of the software, but
right.
It kind of worked. There was nobody in there playing, and so
well, that's the thing. Like that's why it would almost be better if something like Hearthstone Deck Tracker went down this route. Like I think if it's going to work, it's probably going to come from them because their software is already so universal. Like I don't want to say universally used, but it is the most widely used piece of add-on Hearthstone software. I think I can safely make that statement. I think if anyone's going to do it, they're going to do it because they already have people with their software on their computer. So there's already people using it and playing in their environment. So they could probably add on some sort of tournament organizing tools and have a good adoption rate. But anybody starting from scratch is always going to have that kind of barrier there, right? Yeah. Unless something like Battlefy or Challenge or Smash came out with an app that like went on your computer instead of going to their website, then that could probably work too because people are used to using them for matching up with other players. But
yeah,
I think the real answer here for Landon is it's Blizzard's fault.
Well, if they opened up the API,
not the third-party people. Yeah, third-party people have tried. It just doesn't work because there's too many barriers.
Yeah, there are a lot. Anyways, who's our next email from, Dills?
Unstable Fan says, Dear three-headed cluck people, the last few weeks you've talked a lot about how the polarizing meta feels bad and how the bad feeling can linger from game to game. It reminded me of an article I read this summer. Apparently, a study done at the University of Sussex concluded that professional sports destroy happiness. A group of economists looked at 3 million data points from British football fans and found that, on average, when a team lost, its fans were more unhappy than they were happy when the team won, and for a longer duration. The length and intensity of unhappiness associated with a loss were so great They didn't just exceed the happiness from a win. They also exceeded the happiness from the excitement of watching the game. I'm not saying that the average Hearthstone player is necessarily equivalent to the average British football hooligan, but the psychological effects of games are real, and I do hope that Blizzard does something about the current situation. This, to me, reads like a human problem more than a Blizzard problem, wherein...
No, this is just, it's like the psychology.
No, I know, but I mean, what I'm saying is the psychology of just life is that we remember the negative more than we celebrate the positive.
Yes.
And we've talked about this when it comes to things like RNG and stuff. It's like poker players all have their bad beat story, but very few of them remember the time they spiked the ace on the river to like win the pot. They just remember the time the opponent did that, right? And
yeah, those were words that totally make something I understand.
I followed that.
When you top deck the perfect card, you remember when the opponent did that, but not when you did it.
But at the same time, this is also something Team 5 has said that they do consider. They have said that the feeling is a factor in when they're considering nerfs and changes to the game. That feeling is important. It's not the most important, which I don't even think they come out and said, but it's pretty much you can tell by the history of changes in Hearthstone that feeling and public opinion is not always the most important driving factor behind changes, but it is something that they have gone on record as saying that they consider. So, I think Dill's delivery may have come.
Ah, I see.
He did warn us about this ahead of the show. It just didn't make
that's what's happening.
Okay.
Very, very.
But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting. I thought it was really interesting that somebody wrote us in with like an actual study. A university study. Like this guy is into things.
Yeah,
the psychological effects of gaming are very, very real.
Yeah, I'm the wrong person to talk to about the sport effect of this, because I am the guy that I don't really watch when teams I care about aren't doing well, because I don't care about sports that much. I'm a passive fan.
Fair enough.
So all I remember is basically the 2008 Super Bowl, where the Patriots were made to look like total fools to the best team ever, the Giants. So that was the happiest I've ever been watching a sporting event. And I will always remember riding my cousins back around the room as we both screamed in joy when the Patriots lost. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I know, and it's not a Hearthstone example, but I know I have absolutely felt this way, and because I've been streaming our heroic progression over in Warcraft, and chat room even totally called us on this because we were on like the second last boss in heroic, and we wiped 3 or 4 times and then beat it, and instantly we were like, oh, we did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And they're like, you got the boss down, celebrate, damn it. I'm like, but progression, we need to know what we did wrong. And they're just like, no, just take a beat, take a minute and celebrate. And the amount of like, when you're in such a crazy competitive mindset, that's the right word, then it can be really hard to just accept the good thing and remember the good thing. So I thought that this study was really interesting, that it's not just like, it's talking about competitive mindset, period. It's not just sports. It's not just video games. It's just the competitive mindset, period. Whether you're doing the playing or you're watching the playing, we kind of have to remind ourselves to, remember the wins, remember the good moments, the top decks, the RNG, like the stuff that went in our favor. It's a good reminder to just bring that to the forefront of your mind instead of focusing on the negative all the time.
Yeah, and that's true of anything you get too close to, anything you focus on.
I think it's not even just sports or games or whatever. It's like relationships and work, and just like, that's why I said like human problem, because humans just tend to focus on the negative things a lot, and we like go to people to try to make us more positive, right? Like there's a whole industry based around telling people to think positively. It's like, it's hard. It's just not. It's not our nature.
It's not how your brain is wired. Yeah.
Like you're constantly concerned about the next thing and whatever. It's like, and that's why I think you do see things like sports celebrations are so friggin' over the top, because you get this like one final moment of cathartic joy, and there's so much pain behind it, right? Like I remember when the Giants first won the World Series, it was like 30 years of my life have been spent watching this team not do this, and then they did it, and it was like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever. But it was still that one day of that behind 30 years of disappointment, right? So it's like, yeah, it's one of the things too that I think is such a motivating factor for people, because you assume that you will lose forever and then finally will win, and the win will be so sweet, right? And what the study kind of points out is it ain't as sweet as the losing is bitter.
Yes.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we should try.
It doesn't mean we should stop trying. No. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's human nature. It's humanity a little bit. Yeah.
Also try and be mindful of that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's one of the reasons why I talk about when people talk about how they want to hit legend or whatever, and they get ladder anxiety. I tell them, you just have to think about pushing the button and not, oh my God, what if I lose? Right?
Yeah,
because
checkboxing 15 games.
Yeah, exactly. That whole thing of just, I need to play this many games, not I need to win this many stars. It's like an important way to pull your mind back from that inevitable doomsayer that you've got in the back of your brain.
Yeah, because I don't care how good of a Hearthstone player you are, it is going to take a while. It's like working out. You just need to stick to your regimen, and eventually you're gonna look in the mirror and like, holy crap, I've got a golden gem next to my name. That's really cool.
I thought you were still talking about like the working out weight loss analogy, and I was like, wait, where's the golden gem? I didn't get a golden gem. What?
I'm just asking you to be a little fluid, Jocelyn. I've been working long days, and I'm a little punch drunk. So I appreciate you for mostly following my hard right turn in Metaphorville. So whatever the case is, thank you everybody for your emails. Keep them coming to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Before we leave, we got to thank our patrons for supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. And we're going to continue thanking some of our longest running patrons. So thank you to some of the longest running patrons from the very, very early days of the Angry Chicken. Thank you to Mike S., Stephen R., Eamon McG., Justin Y., which I'm pretty sure is Justin Robert Young, because I remember him getting on board very early on and being like, I'm a patron now. You got to let me on your show more often. I was like, that's not how it works, but
it's not how Patreon works, but okay.
But okay, Justin, for you, we'll make an exception. And KCW, thank you all so much for your exceptionally long support of this very weird thing that we do. And it's about to be Thanksgiving, and it means I have to try and explain it to my family again.
Yeah. You're like, so you're still doing that thing? Were you talking to the computer?
I've gotten that question so many times at this event. You're like, how do you make money doing that? It's like, because of Mike, Steven, Eamon, Justin, and Casey.
And what do you talk about? Video games?
Video games?
Yeah.
My nephew likes the Fortnite.
Yes. Oh my God. Or the Minecraft.
Check out this dance.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, I get that. And I love the question. It's always you love talking about yourself, right? You love explaining. I don't mind it at all. But it's always.
I just tell people I'm a bartender now. Great.
If I don't have a lot of time, I still say graphic design.
They know that one. Yeah, they've heard of that.
They know of the bars.
Yes.
If it's an elevator and it's like, oh, there's 5 floors, I ain't got time for this. Yeah, graphic designer. Have a good day.
You know what's very funny, by the way? This is total side tangent here. I know you got to go, Garrett. But telling people you're a bartender is way more respectable than saying you are a barista. And yet, essentially, they are the same thing. Just something I've noticed.
I don't know, I've definitely been the bars that spend less time on their drinks than baristas spend on making my coffee.
Exactly. Yeah. Making a latte, that ain't as easy as you think.
Yeah. So, anyways, thank you so much, patrons. If you enjoy the Angry Chicken, you want to become a patron, head on over to patreon.com/TAC. Huge thanks to our producers, Declan H., Sean C., and LVE. Thank you for the generous support, you three. If you also like the show, drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. If you're not aware of this, we are now on Spotify.
Woo! What? We did it.
We did.
Yeah, if you weren't aware of it and that was keeping you from listening to it, saying this here is probably not helpful. But we are on Spotify, so if that is your app of choice, you can now feel free to switch on over there. We still get a download. It still counts to our ratings, so go and check it out. Tell your friends. We appreciate it. Catch us live Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/AMoveTV. Usually, I will be back next week, so we should be over there, unless I'm like, you know what, Dills, this feels nice. Keep doing this. I just want to flick the camera on and go. But before we do go, Dills, where can everybody find you?
You check me out on Twitter. I'm at Willie Dills, and twitch.tv/Willie Dills is where you can find me streaming the Hearthstones. And I will probably be doing some MTG Arena streams pretty soon because I actually now have some decks that are playable. It's taken a while, a lot of drafting. But I've actually got like 3 or 4 decent decks, so come check me out playing some competitive ladder over there as well.
Jocelyn, what about yourself?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. And as I'm going to be doing for the next 3 to 5 episodes, reminding you guys that we're doing Extra Life again this year. So raising money for the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals. You can check out our team over at bit.ly/TGI Extra Life 2018 if you'd like to donate to me or any of the members of the team. It's all over there. We're going to be starting our first stream up on October 27th, and then we're going to be doing another one on November 10th. And then I'm going to be doing another one in December. So there's lots and lots and lots of Extra Life streaming going on this year. And so I hope to see you guys there.
Awesome. It's such a good cause. Make sure you go and donate to that. Otherwise, it's not a good cause. Following me on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Garrett Art, but I will be retweeting Jocelyn's Extra Life link. So make sure you go and follow it there. So at least I can kind of by association be a good cause. Every other podcast that I do, including this one, can be found at amove.tv. Go check it out if you want to hear a podcast from the road. I just put one up with my wife Katie and myself over on R2T2. You can go to R2-T2. We talk about Mike Morheim leaving Blizzard, how sad we are that we're not going to hear him go hello BlizzCon this year. And took some questions about kind of gaming as a couple, how we play WoW together and stuff like that. So go check that out. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Jocelyn and Dills, for letting me join and do none of the extra posting and whatnot. And I'll see y'all next week. I'll be here on a normal, good sounding microphone. I can't wait. Job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes.